Let me turn it to Senator Capito, and Ben Cardin is next. Senator Cardin is next. Senator Capito.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the charts that I spoke about in my opening statement. You can see on the coal capacity, these are and the blue line would be what's predicted to be the retirements, and then with the IRA, you see drastically by 2040, many, many more. On this one, this is how much are those plants running, the ones that are remaining. You can see with no IRA, close to over 50. Post-IRA, around, looks like 15 to 18%. So do you agree with the conclusions that were drawn? These were made by your Office of Air and Radiation staff recently and presented at a conference.
Well, thanks for that question, Senator. I believe that the model that we developed and the run that we did to produce these results was solid and methodologically sound.
Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you. And there's also additional, which I don't have the larger charts for, but natural gas that has the same, not as dramatic, but the same post-IRA implementation, drastically down in generation and also in capacity factor. So same thing for natural gas. So I've talked to you about this, and you emphasized a lot in your opening statement how you started and the kind of community that you were in and how difficult it was for you to go through joblessness of your father. This is what our communities, my communities, are going to be seeing and have seen, and more drastically over the next 20 years. So are you concerned about the number of jobs that would be lost in this if these projections are correct? And are you taking that into consideration at every step of the way as you're putting forward your regulations?
Senator, that is one of the central questions that we always have before us, which is how to establish standards for, in this case, the power sector that reduces pollution while preserving economic opportunity and jobs.
And how does this preserve jobs?
Well, I'm sorry. The Inflation Reduction Act, as you know, as well as the bipartisan infrastructure law, distributes investments across a great many sectors and of the economy. And what those charts look like, I think, to someone like me who's worked in the Office of Air and Radiation on a number of rules and worked with expert staff who do this kind of modeling, is what we concluded when we did this analysis is that this was an illustrative case. One of the things we tried to communicate in the presentation that went along with these charts is that what the Inflation Reduction Act did was to give utilities a wider range of choices as to the kinds of fuels and technologies they could look to in generating electricity going forward. A computer model is not a utility. A computer model does not make decisions. Communities make decisions. Utility regulators make decisions. Utility investors make decisions. And of course, the utilities themselves do as well.
Right.
So
I'm going to stop.
I think when you consider that what the IRA has done is opened, again, a range of choices or broadened choices to include more cost-effective, say, renewable energy options. We have a long way to go as decision makers and as policymakers before we know what has happened and before we can ultimately influence what is going to happen.
Thank you. I think it's a longer explanation of not saying that it's a lot of job loss here on both these charts and the ones with the natural gas. But let me ask you this, and let's get to the reliability factor. So you're retiring, and through your regulations, through your good neighbor policy, the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, which is another utility or regional operation, says that this creates significant concerns about MISO, which is their acronym, ability to maintain electric reliability. So you take all of this off, and the natural gas that's in your report or in the presentation as well. I don't how are we going to power our nation with this and meet the demands of electric cars? We're not going to be able to do it with what we're seeing. I mean, we can't permit anything, so that's a problem. And so where does this leave us as a nation, is being able to power our nation?
Well, Senator Capito, I appreciate that question because reliability is another one of the central questions in front of us whenever we propose power sector rules. And before we even began the current round of developing rules, we engaged in extensive outreach across the country and across the utility sector, including with PJM, MISO, and other grid operators. When we proposed the Good Neighbor Plan, a number of those parties, including PJM, the author of the most recent report, came back to us and pointed out the ways in which they had concerns about how the Good Neighbor Plan proposal would affect reliability. And as we're developing the final rule, we are making changes to reflect and address those very concerns that have been raised about the ongoing reliability of the grid.
Well, I guess time will tell on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am.